Well, we recently got an update from Catherine, Princess of Wales, informing us that she had just concluded a chemotherapy treatment. And the video showed that she's been spending time in nature with her family, of course, Prince William and her children. So, what I'm going to do in this astrology video is we're going to be taking a look at the astrology chart of Catherine, Princess of Wales, kind of assessing where she's at astrologically. And then also, I'm kind of interested in looking at where Catherine, Princess of Wales, is going to be next year, 2025, because I foresee some really big changes coming her way. So that's what we're going to be talking about today using astrology. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure that you like and subscribe. I want to thank all my new patrons that got me over 5,000 subscribers. Very much appreciated. The goal is 10,000 subs, and I think we're going to get there. If you check down below, that's where you can get a private reading if you're interested. Remember, I practice Vedic sidereal astrology, not Western tropical astrology. So you're going to want to go to the appropriate calculators online if you're calculating your sign. I also want to give you all the disclaimer that this astrology readings for entertainment purposes only. All these statements about Catherine, Princess of Wales, or Prince William, these are all my interpretation of the astrological energies. Let's go ahead and take a look at Princess of Wales astrology chart here. For any of you that are new to this, you're going to see that the chart looks a little different than some of the circular charts you may be used to seeing in Western tropical astrology. Now, Catherine, Princess of Wales, she's a Cancer ascendant, just like King Charles is. So it's interesting that they're going through some of the same astrological transits right now. The first thing we're going to focus on the planetary timeline, or what's known as the Vimshatari Dasha in Vedic astrology. Basically, the planetary timelines are just periods where there's certain planets that the focus are on, where the karmas associated with that planet are being essentially released during this timeline. So she is in, the Princess of Wales is in a Mercury Jupiter period. So Mercury Jupiter. And so we're going to be looking at, for example, Mercury over here in the seventh house of Capricorn. We're going to be looking at Jupiter. I'm going to be giving you the dates of this timeline in just a moment when I show you the slide. Jupiter's in the fourth house of Libra. In Vedic astrology, we also look at house rulership. So, for example, Mercury rules the 12th house of Gemini over here, and it rules the third house of Virgo. And then Jupiter, it rules the ninth house of Pisces and the sixth house of Sagittarius. So all of those houses are being influenced during this astrological period. We're also going to be talking about the Saturn transit that's occurring right now. This is really affecting King Charles and the Princess of Wales because they're both Cancer ascendant. And if I remember right, Queen Camilla's Cancer ascendant as well. So the royal family is going through a sort of crisis right now with Saturn being in the eighth house. I'll talk about that after we talk about the timeline here. Now, let me pull up a slide. So we understand it's Mercury, Jupiter, but what does that mean? So, people might be wondering, okay, so what does that mean? Well, Mercury typically, we look at what the meaning of the planet is first. So Mercury is going to be communications. Jupiter is going to be children. It's going to be higher teachings. We look at the meaning of the planet first, then we look at the houses that it's influencing. Let's go ahead and take a look at the slide. I'm going to give you the dates of when this timeline is taking place. So this Mercury Jupiter period, it's December 16th, 2022. She's been in it for a while. And it's about to end here in about 6 months. So March 23rd, 2025 is when it's going to end. Mercury's the Mahadasha, the larger period. So Mercury, for example, it rules things like retreats, rest, losses. So for example, going on retreat into nature would be this 12th house kind of thing because Mercury rules the 12th house. Mercury rules the third house with Saturn and Mars. So there's some difficulty there with Saturn and Mars being activated in the third house. The third house rules media announcements, media publications. And also, I want to point out, I don't believe that I have the slide for this, but let me pull up the chart one more time because you are all probably aware that there's eclipses happening very soon here. On September 17th, there's the lunar eclipse in Pisces, and then in October, we have the solar eclipse in Virgo. So it's interesting that she just came out with this a statement, and the eclipse axis is this 3-9 axis, and 3-9 is all about announcements. So third house is announcements. But the Saturn and Mars activation there in the third house over here, that's a little bit concerning. So I feel like, my gut feeling here, and then looking at the astrology chart, is we're not out of the woods yet with this situation. So even though we're happy that she's concluded this treatment, I still feel like it's definitely a time to be on watch about things, and that's what I would tell the Princess of Wales if I was giving her a consultation. Now let's talk about Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter's in the fourth house, so there's very much a focus on children right now, and that's pretty obvious. Home life, trying to have a normal domestic life. But the thing is Jupiter rules the sixth house. Even though it's a natural benefic for most people, for Cancer ascendant rules the sixth house, which is like imbalance, health issues, disease. So there's definitely a lot of issues. And we have to consider, even though we're getting this update that seems really good, she's still in this period till March 23rd, 2025. So this is still a difficult period. I'm cautiously optimistic with this. The sixth house does represent things like doctors, so we could be seeing positive improvement here. One more thing, we got to talk about the Jupiter transit for a moment. During this time, Jupiter is very powerful because she's running a Jupiter Antardasha. It is in the 11th house. And the thing about the 11th house of Taurus is it's sixth from sixth. Okay. The 11th house is essentially the antidote to the sixth house. So when Jupiter is going through, we're seeing a remedy that's being brought forth. So this is a really positive placement. Jupiter is going to be in the sign of Taurus all the way until mid 2025. So this is really good as far as improvement goes. Now, I think some of the big changes that are coming are going to be more happening within the royal family itself. Even though she's in this recovery zone, it's kind of unfortunate because she's having this ordeal that she's going through herself, and then she's having to essentially hit the ground running. So, you would think that after you're recovering from something, you'd have this time to kind of enjoy. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of changes here coming up, especially December and January. There could be a lot of changes and a lot of news with the royal family. Remember, we talked about the Mars retrograde. If you watch my previous video on King Charles, please watch that. I feel like there's something really major about to happen with King Charles around that time in December, because retrograde Mars is going to be right over his ascendant degree, right over exactly on December 5th. So definitely concern there. And this could definitely change what's going on with the Princess and Prince of Wales. So we got to really pay attention to this situation. The other thing that I want to bring up is, remember, we're going to talk about the Saturn transit for a moment. And the Saturn transit's always really important to look at in any astrology chart, no matter what planetary timeline you're running. So it's in the 8th house of Aquarius. Saturn's been in this sign since January 2023, and it's going to be there until March 29th, but I'm just going to write 2025 here. So March of 2025, the Saturn transit's almost complete here. Saturn usually, the transit usually lasts about 2.3 years. And the 8th house is all about crisis and transformation. It's all about rebirth. So this is this sense of healing is still very strongly being felt right now as Saturn goes in the 8th house. You see, the crisis is not usually over until Saturn moves into the next sign, which is going to be Pisces, and that's going to be after March 2025. What's interesting to note is when Saturn moves into Pisces. That's when the Princess of Wales is going to be changing astrological periods. She's going to be moving from Jupiter Antardasha to Saturn Antardasha. So that's what I really want to talk about next, which is kind of interesting. So right when Saturn changes signs, she's also changing the planetary timeline she's on, which a lot of times when you look at these charts, there's a lot of synchronicity. You'll notice that a planetary timeline will change right when an important transit will change. And when you get that kind of confluence, it shows that there's something up. It shows that something strong or a very big event is going to be happening around that time. So we could be seeing some really major events in the Princess of Wales life, especially in that window between December and March. We really want to look close. That's only about a 3 to 4 month window where we could see some massive changes in the royal family. Now, like I said, this is a potentiality. Hopefully, everything actually just turns out fine for everybody. But there could be really big changes. We know that Queen Camilla, in my last video, she's been showing a lot of concern, or at least people have been reporting that there's been a lot of concern about King Charles, about, if he's getting enough rest, his health and things like that. So that's one thing that we're going to keep watch on, of course. Now let's show you the slide on the Saturn transit for a moment. So Saturn transit, eighth house is all about crisis, emergency, cycles of rebirth. The other thing I want to point out, it also represents, and I don't think I talked about this, in-laws. That's one of the major things that eighth house represents. So it could even be a crisis for the in-laws, which essentially it is. Think about it. It's not only her own personal crisis, but it's also this crisis of the in-laws, where they both had this cancer diagnosis right in the same time frame, which is, I thought the timing was so strange that they both had this, but it can happen. These things can happen. So there's a crisis going on with the in-laws too. So even if her personal crisis and her personal healing is kind of getting better at this time, there's still this crisis with the royal family. So likely in the slide, I said there will be some challenge over the next 6 months. She's still in the state of healing. These challenges could involve the in-laws, the royal family. There could be many changes over the next 6 months, despite still being in a state of recovery. This is a difficult transit because one feels that they aren't getting a break. So she probably just feels, like I said earlier, she's just hitting the ground running. Like, it's almost like people are saying, and I know people are not saying this, but the feeling might be like, hey, hurry up and get better. Hey, hurry up and get better, because you need to go right when you get better. Are you better yet? Are you better yet? Because we need to get moving. So that can be kind of the inner feeling with what's going on here, which would be quite disturbing. Just not being able to really get that rest, not really being able to just like process what's going on. It's like you're just expected to keep going. So let's talk about the upcoming period, which is March 2025. And remember, so the Saturn's changing signs, and then she's going to be entering a period of Saturn from Jupiter to Saturn. So this is going to be about what is that? About a year, 2 years almost there, almost 2 years. So Saturn is usually a difficult period. Let's go ahead and take a look at where Saturn is in the astrology chart just for a moment, because we got to look at that. So Saturn is over here in Virgo. Remember, Virgo does represent disease in the natural zodiac, because Virgo is the natural sixth house. I'm a little bit concerned with that. It's with Mars, and this can cause some tension. At the very least, what I'm thinking with the Saturn period that's coming up, it usually represents being given a heavy responsibility. And there's been some subscribers and people commenting saying that apparently, like, if King Charles' health, if somehow it wasn't going well and he needed more time to heal, he can kind of like hand over the responsibilities of the monarchy. Maybe some of you can comment down below. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this catastrophic thing that happens, but it could be that there's this more responsibilities that's given to Prince William and the Princess of Wales at this time, because I'm seeing this heavy burden of responsibility coming in right around March. So right around March of next year, we're getting this heavy burden, and there's a lot of with Saturn and Mars together, it can produce a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. It makes it difficult. So it could be a really stressful type of a transition. If we take a look at what Saturn rules, it rules the eighth house and it rules the seventh house. Again, eighth house, I'm a little concerned about eighth house. This is definitely something because Saturn represents heavy karma. Um, and I'm hoping that the Princess of Wales, she's probably got really good medical care, but you know, she'd have to be really on top of this with the astrological periods because it's some difficult energy and eighth house being activated again. So even though Saturn's moving, the eighth house is being activated again because she's in the timeline of Saturn. Okay. So eighth house can represent hidden things. It can represent like things rising to the surface. So she's got to be careful. She's got to make sure she's really keeping up with everything, her health and things like that. Eighth house can also represent a change of identity. So just even like a name, a change of title could be the eighth of house. For example, when somebody um, like if she goes from Princess of Wales, and I don't know if they change it to like you just go to Queen if there's a transition that happens, but eighth house can represent things like that, like a title change. So they go from one title to another title. So that's like a metaphorical death and rebirth, and that's what the eighth house represents. So definitely there's a huge change happening between December and March involving heavy responsibility. So this is you know, definitely not out of the woods yet with this astrology reading. Saturn is generally a time of karmic burdens and responsibility. Definitely, she's going to be feeling a lot of duty. She might be in the media a lot more in 2025 because Saturn's in the third house, and the third house can represent like obligation to talk to the media. So even though it might not be under the most happy you know, occasion, she has to go out there because it's like expected that she make these public appearances, even though she's kind of still in this healing energy. I mean, eighth house being activated, there's kind of this healing, but the duty of obligation, Saturn could be forcing this. Like you have to go out there, be with the public. Now remember, Saturn is our perception of reality. It's not necessarily, it can feel like people on the outside are telling us we have to do this, but a lot of times how Saturn works, it just works through activating this internal sense of obligation and responsibility. You see, what Saturn is it's the guilt and the shame inside of us, like the things that we were taught our whole lives that we should do. Well, you know, if you're queen or if you're Princess of Wales, you should be doing this. So those kind of things that can even be happening within the mind. I mean, some of the advisors, some of the people might actually be saying, hey, you need to slow down. But within the mind, Saturn is saying, hey, you have to get better. Hey, you have to go out and do these things. So there's this sense of responsibility. I see some big changes coming up for the royal family. And it's going to be interesting to see because the eighth house is being activated in Queen Camilla's chart, King Charles' chart, and the Princess of Wales chart. So we're going to be seeing what happens very shortly. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the world coming up. So it's going to be a lot of news coming out over the next few months. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.